Johnny Unitas is one of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of the NFL. To this day, some people consider him to be the greatest quarterback to ever play the sport. And it's easy to see why he's a Hall of Famer, why he's a member of the NFL's 75th anniversary team, and a member of the NFL 100th anniversary team. The man was named an MVP 3 times, being at the time one of just 2 players in NFL history to accomplish this feat, alongside Jim Brown. The man led the league in passing yards 4 times, becoming the first player in NFL history to accomplish this feat, excluding the AAFC. The man led the league in passing touchdowns 4 times, becoming the first player in NFL history to do this, and he did it in 4 straight seasons. And after making it to 10 Pro Bowls, winning 2 NFL championships in the pre-merger era, and making it to the Super Bowl, with Super Bowl 5 being a victory, he has firmly etched his name into the great and storied history of the National Football League. Prior to the arrival of Joe Montana, honestly, if you asked people who the greatest quarterback in NFL history was, 9 out of 10 people would probably say Johnny U. And by the time he walked away after the 1973 season, he held just about every single record in the book. He had 40,239 career passing yards, which was the #1 total in the league, and was over 7,000 yards ahead of Fran Tarkenton, who was in 2nd place. And he had 290 passing touchdowns, which you're watching a compilation of right now. And with that total of 290, being 41 touchdowns ahead of Fran Tarkenton in 2nd place. At the turn of the millennium, even despite the game trending significantly in favor of the quarterbacks, Unitas ranked tied for 4th in passing touchdowns, as he was tied on 290 with Warren Moon, with the 2 of them trailing Dan Marino, Fran Tarkenton, and John Elway. But what if I said that that was a lie? What if I said that Johnny Unitas didn't actually have 290 touchdowns, and that Warren Moon passed Johnny Unitas in 1998 as a member of the Seahawks, and not in 2000 as a member of the Chiefs? What if I said that the NFL miscounted and that one of his touchdowns should be fixed and should be scored a different way? Because folks, roughly 60 years after the fact, I can safely say that one of the touchdown passes by Johnny Unitas was illegitimate and should be ruled as something else. By a complete accident, I may have uncovered a scorekeeping error in NFL history that should lead to one of the greatest ever play the sport having 1 less touchdown than he actually had, and with that touchdown being redistributed as something else. Now, I'm gonna have timestamps for everything here, so if you want to skip around, I've left some guide points in there for you. But in this video, I'm gonna go over how I found out about this play in the first place, because just like my video last year on Michael Strahan, with his sack record being somewhat illegitimate, which you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner, I found this out while looking at something completely different. I'm also going to go over how scoring worked back at the time of the touchdown and whether my findings are consistent with how other similar plays were ruled. I'm going to talk about how the stat correction would change NFL history. And of course, I'm going to show the actual play in question. We're going to cover a lot in this video and change NFL history in the process. But before we do, make sure you hit that like button down below, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single video that we post on the channel. We post every single day on here about the weird and the wacky history of the NFL with stories like this one that you may not have heard of before. So if you like that sort of stuff, then this is definitely the place for you. Thanks in advance for liking and subscribing and for helping us grow this community. And with that in mind, let's rewrite history 6 decades later. Now, the first thing when it came to this man right here that you might be wondering is, quite simply, how the heck did I come across this? There weren't any newspaper articles about it, there wasn't any discussion about this by any pundits at the time, nor has there been any discussion about it by anyone all these years later. We just accepted Johnny Unitas and his 290 touchdowns as fact for all these years, and had no reason not to. Well, I was doing research for another video on Johnny Unitas that I put out on the channel a few weeks ago, where I talked about the dumbest trade rumor in NFL history. You can learn more about that by clicking the card in the upper right corner. In short, the premise of that video was that a prominent sports personality had sources that Johnny Unitas, after getting benched by Baltimore, was going to be traded to Washington mid-season, despite the fact that the trade deadline had literally passed 3 months ago, and even if the two sides wanted to get a deal done, they were not allowed to. Basically, if I made a video right now saying that I had sources that Patrick Mahomes was getting traded to the Saints for a third-round pick, at least that could theoretically happen, and wouldn't be as dumb as the rumor in question. So, when doing a video about Johnny Unitas, as you might be able to expect, I was trying to find footage of Johnny Unitas. And one of the easiest ways for me to get footage over the years, and one of my go-tos, is using Pro Football Reference. Every player has a touchdown log that tells you every touchdown pass that they threw, when it came in the game, and who the touchdown was thrown to. With that in mind, I just started grabbing clips from games that Unitas threw touchdown passes in, because not only are touchdown passes cool, but you've got a greater chance of finding touchdowns than any other play, simply because there's a ton of lost footage from back in the 1960s. And the only thing that exists for most NFL games are the weekly This Week in Pro Football recaps, where they showed 8 plays in 3 minutes per game. And I wasn't trying to disprove NFL history or statisticians during this process. I was just trying to get clips of various touchdown passes that Johnny Unitas threw over his career. And one of the touchdown passes that I came across was from a 1968 game against the Los Angeles Rams. Keep in mind that Unitas barely played that season. He got injured and was replaced by Earl Morrall, who promptly played lights out and went on to win MVP honors off the bench. But in Week 14, the final week of the season, with the Colts having nothing to play for, having clinched the division by that point, they decided to give Morrall a rest and put in Johnny Unitas for the end of the contest, since he was good enough to go by this point. With the game tied at 14 apiece entering the fourth quarter, Unitas engineered a touchdown drive, which culminated in what was just his second touchdown pass of the season. This one was a 9-yard pass to Preston Pearson. And folks, what I'm about to show you regarding this play is a little bit interesting. Let's roll the tape.
On the first play of the fourth quarter, Unitas found Preston Pearson with a short toss that put the Colts back on top, 21-14.
All right, so obviously, I'm not denying that a touchdown was scored. That is true. Even if the referee screwed up in awarding a touchdown here for whatever reason, which they didn't, but if they did, you can't reverse that. Preston Pearson clearly ran into the end zone. The Colts took the lead and won the game 28-24. But you might have noticed something a bit odd about this touchdown pass. And that's the fact that this very clearly does not look like a touchdown pass. Now, this play was ruled as a touchdown pass, with this being the 254th of Johnny Unitas' storied career. The box score says it was a touchdown pass. It wasn't an input error from Pro Football Reference. You can see in this box score from the day after the game that Unitas finished the game with a touchdown pass. The game recap even said that Unitas was sharp enough to throw one touchdown strike of 9 yards. A different game recap that I found from UPI said Johnny Unitas returned to action Sunday and threw one touchdown pass. In other words, this was the play. There is no doubt whatsoever that this play was ruled a touchdown pass by Johnny Unitas to Preston Pearson and was recorded as such. But did you notice anything about the direction of the ball? That's right, this is a backward pass. This ball isn't just thrown behind the line of scrimmage, it is thrown backwards. When Unitas throws the football, his back foot is on the 14-yard line, and his arm is roughly at the same spot. When Pearson catches the ball, he catches it at the 17-yard line, a full 3 yards behind where Unitas threw it. It's not as if this is a somewhat deceiving angle, or a matter of inches, or something that was too close to call. It's not as if this was the Music City Miracle. This is very obviously a backward pass, thrown from the 14 to the 17. And because the 15-yard line runs across the length of the field, you have that as an indicator to show that this was a backward pass. When Unitas threw the ball, It was ahead of the 15-yard line. When Pearson caught the ball, it was behind the 15-yard line. Unitas should not be credited with a passing touchdown here. This should be a rushing touchdown from Preston Pearson, which would have been the first rushing touchdown of his career and would have meant that his first rushing touchdown came as a Colt in 1968 and not as a Steeler in 1970. Now, after seeing that replay over and over again, you might be saying to yourself, well, today, that's very clearly a backward pass, but maybe under 1968 rules, things were different. There's a statistician's guide that gets updated every year to help out official stat keepers in terms of crediting yardage and players and whatnot. I don't have a copy of that guide from 1968, unfortunately. But maybe, under the old statistician's guide, plays like this were ruled as passing touchdowns. And I'm just using hindsight and using a 2025 lens to dissect a play from 1968. However, as you're about to find out, I'm reasonably confident that this was not the case, and that the way that stats worked in 1968 when it came to plays like that one were identical to how they work today, and that this should be ruled a rushing touchdown as a result. For one, while I don't have that stat guide from 1968, I do have this excerpt from Frank Gifford's football guidebook from 1965. And in this guidebook, Gifford explains the difference between a forward pass and a lateral pass. He says that a forward pass is a ball thrown forward to the line of scrimmage or beyond, while a lateral pass has different rules, as unlike a forward pass, where the play is dead once the ball hits the ground, the play is not dead on a lateral pass thrown behind the line of scrimmage and backward. There is a different rule today where, back in 1968, if the defense picked up a backward pass, they couldn't advance it. And today, they can. I'm not sure why that was ever a rule in the first place and what logical reason there was for blowing the play dead, but you get the idea. The two passes operated under different rule sets, and they were treated as such. Here is an example of that from the 1968 season, going over to the American Football League a few weeks later, which, when it came to this, had the same rules as the National Football League. This is a play from the AFL Championship between the New York Jets and the Oakland Raiders. So again, the same exact season. And this play was ruled as a lateral. Darryl LaMonica threw the ball, it went backward, and the Jets picked it up, with the Jets getting the ball back at the spot since they couldn't advance it. And when you look at the box score from that game, it showed that LaMonica went 20 for 47 with 401 yards passing and no interceptions. But he did have a fumble. So this definitely helps the case of Johnny Unitas not actually deserving credit for that touchdown pass to Preston Pearson, seeing as the rules for how stats were kept were different for balls thrown backward versus balls thrown forward, just like they are today. But oddly enough, the best example of this that shows that Unitas shouldn't get credit for the touchdown comes from none other than Johnny Unitas himself. Because 2 years before, in 1966, Unitas played in a game against the Minnesota Vikings. And during that game, a play happened involving him under center and fullback Tony Lowrick. Now, unfortunately, we don't have the footage of the complete play, so I can't show the run after the catch. But I can show the moment that Unitas threw the football, and I can show the initial point where Lowrick touched it. Here is that play.
He can react in the face of a furious rush.
And this play, I honestly have no idea if this should be a forward pass or a lateral. It is awfully, awfully close. And I'm not throwing a fit over this particular play. This is the only angle we've got. And man, it is a tough one. When Unitas throws the ball, it looks like he's just a hair past the 7-yard line. When the ball is caught, it looks as if Lowrick is at the 7.5, close to the 8-yard line. Personally, I rule this a pass, but I'm not losing sleep over it. So why do I bring this play up? Because this play was ruled a lateral. This was ruled as a rushing attempt. Tony Lowrick did not catch a single pass during this game. He had 8 rushing attempts, and I'm assuming this was the one that went for 41 yards. Again, we don't have the footage of him running beyond the catch, but we don't even need it, because the stat keeper said that this was a rushing attempt and not a pass. Again, I'm not going to throw a fit on this play if this is the only angle we have, and if some more yards should be added to Johnny Unitas' career total, and some rushing yards taken away from Tony Lowrick. But what I am saying is that this play was close, and it was ruled a backward pass and a rushing attempt. And somehow, the Preston Pearson play, which was very clearly backward to the naked eye by 3 whole yards, was ruled a passing attempt? That doesn't seem to make any sense. This is someone screwing up big time. In other words, this is not operating under the 2025 rule set. This was an inconsistency by the stat keeper back in the 1960s, where the play should not have been scored the way it was. So going back to this play right here with Preston Pearson, that should have been ruled a rushing touchdown and not as a receiving touchdown, how does this impact NFL history? It doesn't change much for 1968, since Unitas barely played that season due to injury. But from a historic standpoint, rewriting the rulebook for this play changes quite a bit. Number one, Johnny Unitas now has 289 passing touchdowns. In 1975, when Fran Tarkenton threw his first touchdown pass to Chuck Foreman during the final game of the season against the Buffalo Bills, that touchdown was thought to be the one that tied the record at 290. Turns out, it wasn't. Turns out that pass to Foreman broke the record, and he actually tied the record in front of his home fans 2 weeks prior with a second quarter strike against the Green Bay Packers. It also means that Kirk Cousins, as of this video getting released, is only 1 touchdown away from tying Johnny Unitas on the all-time leaderboard, not 2 touchdowns away. And it means that Warren Moon didn't pass Unitas for 4th all-time in 2000 as a member of the Chiefs in garbage time. Instead, he did it in 1998 as a member of the Seattle Seahawks 2 years before. Bottom line, this touchdown should very clearly not be a touchdown. Based on my set of eyes, based on what we know about the NFL rules, and based on what we know about how stats were kept back then, there is no way whatsoever that Johnny Unitas deserves credit for a passing touchdown here. It should be a 9-yard rushing touchdown from Preston Pearson. For roughly 6 decades, we've all believed that Johnny Unitas had 290 career passing touchdowns. Turns out, he's 1 short. The NFL has retroactively changed stats and adjusted numbers based on corrections made years later, and this feels like one that should happen and had just been forgotten about, because no one seemed to be bothered to change it, and no one cared. Because while Johnny Unitas was really good, he wasn't 290 touchdowns good. Check out our live streaming schedule for the next few days. We're live every single day on this channel, whether we're covering a sporting event or playing GeoGuessr or just taking your requests. So make sure you like and subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single time that we go live and so that you can join this community. Also, thanks to all our members and our Patreon supporters who get exclusive perks like their name at the end of each video, members-only Q&A streams, and cool emojis to use on videos and during streams. See how you can join this community and become a member or a Patreon member by clicking the link in the description below.